Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this first webinar for the year. I wish you all a fantastic 2024. I believe it's going to be a great year for all of us. So good to see you, people from all over the world uh, who are joining as we speak. We take a maximum of 100 people on a webinar. So we look forward to seeing it fill up as we go. Just a little admin arrangement. At the end of the webinar, you will receive an email from the system, which will thank you for attending this evening. You'll receive your certificate of attendance together with a feedback form and, most importantly, a link to the recording of this webinar. It's recording as we speak. Right, without further ado, let's begin. Tonight we're going to be speaking about obtrusive light. It's an actual case study and solutions to combat light pollution. And very interestingly, the gentleman who brought this particular case to me, and I consulted for him and his two brothers, is in fact attending this evening. So welcome to Derek. Right, let's move on. So by way of introduction, lighting in all forms has been my life study. It includes all good lighting, but strangely enough, conversely, it's being able to recognize bad and even shockingly bad lighting. I've learnt about obtrusive light and light pollution, and I've made quite a study of it. I've studied all international and local standards, guidelines, and everything there is to do with obtrusive light and light pollution. I've also studied ways to counter or correct lighting causing obtrusive light or light pollution. In other words, to mitigate for these things that happen around us. So my challenge to you this evening, and I like to put down a challenge, is in fact to ask you, have you ever seen obtrusive light or light pollution? Are you able to actually recognize it, to identify this thing? My challenge to you is to take a night drive in the area in which you live. Extend your drive a little bit wider until eventually you're getting right onto the outskirts and into the countryside away from it. Log what you see. Write it down. Use your mobile phone to actually record your comments as you're driving. And, where possible, take photographs. And remember, don't use the flash. Log each case. Consider what you can do to eliminate either or both. Study the standards, the guidelines, the bylaws, international, national, and even local. Make a plan to tackle the problems head on. You might even earn fees for your efforts. The magnificence of our universe. I was privileged to visit the Kruger National Park with my wife, my second son, that's Daniel's slightly older brother, and daughter-in-law from Madrid during August 2023. Without doubt, the highlight of our trip was our stay at Shumawini Bushveld Camp in the Kruger National Park, which is world famous. There are only 15 very well-appointed cottages, each accommodating different sizes. There's 13 that are one bedroom, There's one that is 2-bedroom and one that is 3-bedroom. 2-bedroom, both en suite, and 3-bedroom, all en suite. There are no pathway lights. There are no exterior lights whatsoever. The only light that is emitted anywhere in that camp is from the interior of the cottages. So apart from all the wild animals, the highlight was lying on the grass outside our cottage to look up at that unbelievable night sky. Of course, we turned the lights off inside our cottage, and we listened to the sounds of the animals, the night sounds. But let me share some images of that. Look at that beautiful picture. This is taken by our daughter-in-law, Chris. And you can see very clearly the Milky Way. And you have no idea how busy that night sky is. The satellites passing each other, different levels. You keep looking and you keep seeing them. Another view. And every view is amazingly beautiful. So that's what we saw. But let's look at this horror of light at night. Clearly, it will differ depending on whether it is clear, just overcast, or overcast with rain. And do this next time you go out and you look at the night sky, wherever you live, in the cities, the suburbs, and see, can you see the night sky depicted in the photographs that I've just shown you? Then, on an overcast evening, go outside and have a look at the difference. The amount of light that is reflected back from the clouds above. And you will be astonished to see how much light pollution there is. And then, of course, overcast with rain, it actually gets even worse because of the light reflected off the wet surface of the roads and rooftops. So let's look at what do the standards say. What standards are there? Regulations, guidelines, international, national, local, and bylaws. We first look at the highest level, which is the CIE, or the International Commission on Illumination, which is the overall body that in fact determines the way we address lighting. There are several of these, and I'm not going to go through them. You can read them. There's the one about mesopic photometry. Mesopic means how we see things at dusk and dawn. There's the determination of the optical beam axis, the center beam intensity and the beam angle of all directional light sources. There's a guide on limiting the effects of obtrusive light from outdoor installations. And then there's the guidelines for minimizing sky glow. Sky glow is that light pollution that goes up into the sky. It does no good for anyone except to obliterate the sky that we can't see, that wonderful universe. Then we look at some of the international standards. There's the Model Lighting Ordinance, which is a joint regulation by the Illumination Engineering Society of North America and the International Dark Sky Association. And as you will see a bit later, it also involves the Green Building Council of the United States. And then there's the standard, which is the European standard for light and lighting, or lighting of outdoor workplaces. So there we have to take care not to create light pollution and obtrusive light. Then from the Institution of Lighting Professionals, which is my mother institute in the United Kingdom, is the guidance note number 1 on the reduction of obtrusive light. So the very first lighting guidance note that they ever produced is number 1, the reduction of obtrusive light. And just recently that has in fact been updated, but it still remains number 1. It's just the new version. There's lighting against crime, because everybody says we put up lights to deter criminals. And then getting light right. And then there's the guidance on undertaking environmental light impact assessments, and this is for members of the institution only. But we've got a tremendous amount at our disposal to guide us. There's a guidance note on bats and artificial lighting, domestic exterior lighting, getting it right, how to do it correctly, that it doesn't negatively impact on neighbors, on fauna and flora, and it does the job that you intended it for in the first place. The review of impact of artificial light on invertebrates. So you see it affects invertebrates. And getting light right by DEFRA. That's the Department for Environmental, Food and Rural Affairs. The campaign to protect rural England and the campaign for dark skies. Then there's GP12 guidance number 12 towards understanding what sky glow is, that horrible thing called light pollution. And then there's an outdoor lighting guide and 60 other publications by the Institution of Lighting Professionals in the UK. And right just before we continue, I'd like to draw your attention to the green banner at the top of the screen, where we are offering a New Year promo, 30% discount on advanced diploma course. Our well-known and internationally well-known course, rated one of the best in the world. It's a saving of 6,300 Rand in South African currency. Then there are South African national standards, which address the areas of outdoor exterior workplaces and the guidance on the limitation of obtrusive light from outdoor lighting installations. So let's look at the definition. What is this thing known as obtrusive light? It's now formally referred to as nuisance light, because that is what it is. It's unwanted, misdirected light at night. Other names that it's had, like light trespass and light spill, because that's what it does. In this particular case study, you're going to see that it's light trespass. It trespasses onto the property of private residences, homes. What is light pollution? Light pollution is an environmental problem caused by increased, unwanted, misdirected light at night. It blanks the ability for us to see the night sky. I'm going to activate the Q&A section. So if you have any questions, you can type it into the Q&A box in Q&A mode. Then on the 16th of May, there's UNESCO's International Day of Light. Coming up this year, but last year, in 2023, there was the LUCI Declaration. LUCI means Lighting Urban Community International. It is a network of 70 cities who share the best practice and innovation on urban lighting. They embrace a net zero lighting policy. We say, well, okay, LED is efficient. It should be better than the old technologies we had. But LED alone is not enough to address this. Minimizing light pollution for all living beings, humans, fauna, flora, everything on the planet. Supporting health and well-being, progress through dialogue, public dialogue. But realizing the full potential of community engagement, talking to each other, talking to the communities, so that everybody is aware of what has to be done, how we should improve our environment, lighting in our environment. We need to harness the transformative power of light art and create synergies beyond lighting. Then here's something new for you. Simply red. The color red is more environmentally friendly. It's good for us because we can see equally well with the color red. We can see to drive. We can see obstacles in the road remarkably well. And it's kind to fauna and flora. It has less glare than the currently white LEDs, and some of those which are the much cooler color, which have high blue light content. So when you're driving home at night, when you should be slowing down and preparing yourself for nighttime, it's waking you up because of all the blue light. So in many parts of the world, they are changing to get away from the blue light. So what else do we know about obtrusive light and light pollution? In September 2023 edition of our magnificent lighting journal of the ILP, the neglected pollutant was addressed. The ILP, the Institution of Lighting Professionals, presented evidence together with the Society of Light and Lighting, abbreviation SLL, and other eminent organizations presented this evidence to the United Kingdom House of Lords. But the realization is no matter where in the world politics comes, there's an obstacle. There's buck passing, too many departments trying to have a say, and nobody really wants to get down to it and make decisions. And the present circumstances of this case that we're dealing with is no exception. Then there's the enforcement dilemma. So yes, there can be regulations, bylaws, standards, but because there are so many departments, each of them having an oar in the water, and I say that in inverted commas, for obtrusive light and light pollution, that the boat goes nowhere. The response of government is do more research and report back. And when you report back, there's more research and report back. And it takes months and even years before decisions are taken. Despite the fact that we have all those guidelines, standards, regulations in place in the world. The Model Lighting Ordinance, as I told you, was developed by the Illumination Engineering Society of North America, the US Green Building Council, and the International Dark Sky, as far back as 2014. And it is still in force, still applicable. The purpose is to give authorities at all levels guidance to avoid over-illumination and light pollution, and of course, obtrusive light. Here's a useful document, and Daniel, perhaps you could copy this and share it in the chat box. I'll leave it on for a moment, just whilst I take a sip of water. It's very hot in Cape Town. It's still around 31 degrees. Right. There are lighting zones that are declared in the Model Lighting Ordinance, and let me share them with you. Lighting Zone 0 means that there should be no light. These are areas where the natural environment will be seriously and adversely affected by lighting. Its impacts include disturbing the biological cycles of fauna and flora. With that light, they don't know, can't tell the difference between night and day, and or detracting from human enjoyment and appreciation of the natural environment. Then we have lighting zone 1, which is low ambient lighting. It's in areas where lighting might adversely affect flora and fauna or disturb the character of the area, but where there are instances where lighting is necessary, but in the lowest forms, in the kindest forms to the flora, fauna, and character of the area. Then we have lighting zone 2, which is moderate ambient lighting, areas of human activity where the vision of human residents and users is adapted to moderate light levels, typically used for safety and convenience, but not necessarily uniform or continuous lighting. In other words, it could be turned on at times during where we commute from work to home, when we take the dogs for a walk in the early evening, and then at a certain time of the evening, the lights either dim down or they are turned off until a time when, after surveys have been carried out, they determine when people start moving to commute to work, take children to schools, and so on. Then you've got LZ3, which is moderately high ambient lighting, and this is typically in areas where lighting is generally desired for safety, security, convenience, and often it's more uniform and continuous. Typically, the lighting that we have in our cities. But I hasten to add that lots of our lighting in the cities is in fact overdone. It over illuminates. We overemphasize because we want safety and security. But light, without being bright, provides you with safety and security. And then lighting zone 4, which is the high ambient lighting, and that's typically in the city, on highways and freeways. So there we have it. And if we apply our mind and to these different zones, we should be able to then make sure that we apply the correct lighting for the occasion. Right, let's look at this real case of obtrusive light and light pollution. I was contacted by this gentleman who described the problem to me that I realized without just listening that something serious was amiss. And I then requested more detail, photographs, map coordinates, the history, including requests to different people and authorities to rectify the situation. I received the information, I studied it. Obviously, I saved it in a folder on my computer, and I then scheduled a site visit at night time. I went when it was early evening, so I could see the surroundings in sort of late afternoon, early evening, to get myself orientated, to have a look, and then I stayed there together with this gentleman, and we watched as the night embraced us. And we saw the problem. And I'm going to, excuse me, describe that problem to you shortly. There's a Google Earth view of the site. Let me explain it to you. This is a tar road which goes from the town where this closest to this site, which is not that distant. It's actually fairly close to the town. But the area out this way is a biodiverse area. This is a water reservoir because up in this area, just let me change my pointer. Up in this area, there actually is a water storage dam, and the water is pumped down via this pump station here. Pump station there, and then is distributed via the reservoir to the town. Important for you to note, north of this area, or actually it's more to the west of this area, is quite a large farming area. But importantly, in our area of interest, this is the homestead where the gentleman lives. His brother lives there, and his other brother lives there. So this is their access road. It's a private road, giving access to their residences, their homesteads. All right, so this is all vegetation. As you can see, there are not many trees. They're very low. There's low vegetation. Here there's thicker vegetation on this side and a little bit alongside the road. The impact of obtrusive light and light pollution, in this instance, we were unable to observe the dark sky in all its glory. The whole environment, including fauna and flora, is affected. Biodiversity, in most cases, the natural state, is not subject to, normally not subject to artificial light, but in this case, it is being affected by the artificial light. The habitats of both human and wildlife are suffering in this instance. It's impacting on bats and their ability to forage naturally for a source of food is being severely impacted. And of course, all other forms of fauna and flora. And let me tell you that research has found that artificial light impacts on climate change and energy efficiency as well. And that's you'll see it quite clearly. Human health suffers, particularly because of obtrusive and nuisance light. It disrupts sleep patterns and therefore results in the inability of people to produce sufficient quantities of the essential hormone called melatonin, which is only produced at nighttime in darkness. It's an essential antioxidizing substance. It's our own human built-in cancer-fighting ability. When we get adequate quality sleep, and we're talking about 8 hours a night, it is also great support for our human immune system. Public road safety, when obtrusive light spills onto the public roads, can create discomfort and disability glare from floodlight luminaires, which can, in fact, that glare can be so dangerous, people could go off the road. It can result in accidents. Obtrusive light and light pollution impact, listen to this, internationally, the United Nations has recognized it as well. It impacts on the human rights of the people who are affected by it. And of course, astronomical observatories are also troubled by it. And then, plain and simply, outdoor aesthetics are no longer there. So, we're back to our Google Earth map. I took dimensions and I used a laser. I subsequently measured it on Google Earth, and my measurements were all correct. This is 165 meters from the offending floodlights at the pump station to the gentleman who contacted me, to his homestead. But that floodlight lights all the way up onto the hillside here, beautiful hillside, right to the crown of the hill, 684 meters away. To the second homestead, it's 187 meters, and to that one, it's 295 meters. To this point here, which is brightly lit up, it's 524 meters. To the top of the hillside, remember the dam is on the other side of the hillside, it's 269 meters, and in this direction, 322 meters. That's excessive. It's doing great damage. And not just because I'm serious about lighting. It truthfully is totally unnecessary. So let's have a look. This is taken from the homestead. That is the floodlight that is causing offense. Look at it. That's taken without a flashlight. There's the floodlight. Mounted on each side of this building is a 200-watt LED floodlight. It's a typical product that you can purchase from any of the electrical wholesalers, Builders Warehouse, and all those sort of places. And look how it is mounted. It's mounted, and where is it directed? It's directed, causing all that trouble. And there's a more close-up view of it. And if you look at this particular area, it is zoned as an agricultural zone 1. And you know what zone 1 said? Yes, there can be light, but very gentle, delicate light, just sufficient for the purpose that you want to see where you're going when you approach your front door. And once you get there, you turn the light off. That type of thing. If we look at the pump station itself, there is the pump station building with those troublesome lights. This is inside the gentleman's house. Inside, the light is shining. It's reflected off a wall inside the house. And look how it lights up the window. Isn't that amazing? It shows you how bright that light is. It's shining through the glass and reflecting off the walls inside to light up the window that you can see it. It looks like there's a light on inside the house, but there isn't. Let's analyze the source of the problem. The source of the problem is there are 4 200-watt wide beam floodlights, typical consumer type product. The floodlights are placed high on the building, one on each side, and the light is directed straight outwards with no consideration about the impact. In fact, probably just being kind to the authorities and the people that work there, they probably don't know any of this stuff at all. They don't even realize what effect it's having. The purpose of the floodlights is said to be for security. It's not linked to any alarm. So even if people made an entry there or tried to do any damage, because it's not linked to alarm, nobody would know about it until tomorrow morning. The site is not monitored. It's distant from the town. The reaction takes long to respond. And lights alone are not the solution. And they probably do monitor it. They probably monitor the pumps to see that the pumps are performing correctly. But that's it. As I said, the area is agricultural and it's also close to a proclaimed biodiverse area. The biodiverse area extends from the Karoo Desert National Botanical Gardens, which are on the way from the town to this particular area that we're talking about. So what are the possible solutions? Firstly, the simplest, at no cost to anyone, would be to aim the floodlights directly down towards the ground. Still provide them with security, but without causing all that terrible light pollution and obtrusive light. Then the second is to change the floodlights to a lower wattage, in fact, much lower. 50 watts LED would be more than enough to light that area effectively. Then even better still would be to change the floodlights to a lower wattage and fit them with motion sensors and perhaps even a photoelectric cell or a timer set for seasonal change and link it to an alarm system. And that would mean there would be a huge energy saving if we went from 200 watts to 50 watts. We'd save 75% of the current energy usage. The lights would only become functional according to the timer, right? They wouldn't turn on, but they would be functional, and they would only activate when human movement was detected. They'd also activate the alarm in the control room, and if they had the addition of a solution of CCTV around the building, it can be activated because we can link it to the floodlights and activate it when there's ever any movement. And the control room would be notified and they would actually be able to see what it is, what the intruder is doing. So, my concluding remarks are simply this. Authorities at all levels lack knowledge and awareness. That's not being unkind. I don't mean to be unkind to them. So we need to educate them. It's an educational process. They have a lack of understanding how to deploy light at night. Lighting solutions are easy if they have the knowledge and the awareness of what is required. So we must educate the authorities and the communities to mobilize to tackle obtrusive light and light pollution. But to do it in a way that there's a win-win for all stakeholders. Not an aggressive approach, but a win-win. So we say, this is the problem. Let me help you. This is what you could do to mitigate the problem. And then we can work together to solve the issue. That is the way to take it. We have to do something to get people around a table so that a decision can be taken in the short term rather than months and months. So far, we're talking about 4 months with little or no action. And we just have a little way to go. Right, be sure to attend the next webinar. The next webinar is going to be extremely interesting. It's going to be presented by Professor Peter Dunsby, who is an cosmologist. He's a professor of cosmology, a professor of mathematics and applied mathematics at the University of Cape Town. It's going to be unique and special. Please take note very carefully. When you receive your invitation, take note of the starting time. It is different. The reason being, we want to see the night sky. So it will be starting at 2000, in other words, 8 p.m. on the Thursday evening. All right. And that is going to be in the month of February. All right. Daniel has been really on the ball, and he's put all the information in the chat box. He's put the professor's Instagram URL so that you can take a look before the time and see what you're going to be in for. We are very excited about it. Thank you, Daniel, for initiating this. Daniel, of course, is in Spain, so he does it by long distance. So there's the link for you to register, and it's really going to be exciting. I'm thrilled because having had my experience in the Kruger National Park, looking up at the night sky, I can't wait. Right. Finally, thank you very much for attending. If you would like to know more about the courses that we offer, you can contact Daniel. There's his email address. There's his WhatsApp number. You can't phone him on that number because he's in Spain. And there's my email address and my WhatsApp number. And of course, you can phone me because I'm in South Africa. Right. If there are no further questions, I'm just checking. No, I can't see any others. I would like to bid you good evening. Have a wonderful evening. Hopefully, it's dark and you can look up at the night sky. But even if you live in the city, look up at the night sky and see what you can see. Turn the lights in your own house off because that helps to darken the area in your immediate vicinity and really see what you can enjoy. So thank you once again for attending. It's been terrific having you, people from all over the world, and we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Thank you very much, and good evening to you.